Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. I'm Nick. I lead AI at BCG, the Boston Consulting Group. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about what we've been seeing 12 months into the ChatGPT and generative AI craze, and how businesses, because we work mostly with large Fortune 5,000 companies, are moving from, let's say, GenAI magic to business magic. So I'm just going to start very quickly with this. So 12 months ago, more or less, ChatGPT was introduced into the world. Of course, this was, Transformers and GPT was there before, but this really marked a turn in the GenAI movement, and for many of us, created a sort of holy shit moment when you start experiencing what this technology can do. And so a great science fiction writer, Arthur C. Clarke, one of my favorites, said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and it felt like this a little bit at the beginning. And since then, of course, GenAI has improved a lot its capabilities. We've seen many, many more advances in what the models could do, and there's been a flurry of announcements almost every week. The latest this morning with the introduction of Google Gemini. And as I said, many of us had that feeling, wow, I'm every day discovering new capabilities that I didn't know were possible. One of them, so my chairman, is a big fan of basketball. And so the one thing that moved him the most, and that I found quite great, because of course everyone expects generative AI to be quite good at conversational things and text summarizations, text generation, etc. But there was always a doubt on its capabilities, at least a few months ago, on understanding, analysis, and meaning in things that are not text. And so we showed it this chart. And for the Americans in the room, it means something. A little bit less for me, but which is the performance of great basketball players ranked by age across their careers. And we showed this to one of the models, asking, okay, what is the key takeaway of this chart? No previous prompt, nothing else. And interestingly, it identifies correctly that LeBron James has surpassed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's career points in 2023, making him the top scorer among the top 250 scorers charted by age. And what else is notable about this achievement? Well, it achieved this at a younger age than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, meaning that if he continues to play at this performance, he might set a considerably higher record before retiring. This, my son, who's 10 years old, might be able to say the same, but it showed, at least a few months ago, that this technology was capable of much more than was previously thought. And of course, for businesses like us, who are all about data analysis and reasoning, this was quite profound. The thing that, of course, everyone in this room is aware of is that when it comes to technology, we are on an exponential path. So what I just showed is just a sliver of the current capabilities, but more importantly, it is only a sliver of what will come next. If we just rank AI across the ages with a very imperfect metric, which is the number of parameters in the model, so the size of the model, what you see is that you go back to the 60s, you had expert systems, not very smart. They just do what you tell them to do, 0 parameters. You go to machine learning, a few thousand parameters. Deep learning in the 2010s, hundreds of thousands, sometimes a few million parameters. Large models, GPT-3, 170 billions. GPT-4, roughly 2 trillions. Gemini Ultra, we don't know. GPT-5, maybe we don't know. But what is interesting is a time scale. Between GPT-2 and GPT-3, you multiplied the size of the model by 1,000 in about a year. GPT-3 to GPT-4 by 12 in about 18 months. We are going much, much faster than Moore's law, which means that we are only at the beginning of an acceleration of performance. So we have here a technology that really feels like magic, where its capabilities are constantly evolving, and who knows what comes next. And I usually tell my clients when they tell me, AI, it's great, but it's never going to be able to replace, you can end the sentence whichever way you like, my best marketeers, my best salespeople, my best consultants, you name it. Well, we're not really sure. So that's the tech magic. But what about business? 12 months later, where do we stand in terms of business adoption? As often with technology, and especially technologies that are moving as fast as this one, business maturity is trailing technological maturity by quite a bit. We just surveyed about a few hundreds of very large corporations to understand where they stand in terms of generative AI adoption and value generation. And roughly speaking, about half of them are still in the what the hell do I do with this phase? That's a technical term, by the way. Figuring out, okay, where is the value? What do I do? How do I manage the risk? What is my roadmap? And so still trying to figure out how to turn this into value. I would say about 40% of them have actually started to take action, usually focusing on one or two areas. The most I would say popular candidates are typically customer service, marketing, knowledge management, starting with one thing and really driving additional efficiency, additional effectiveness in these functions, leveraging GenAI. And only about 10% are really starting to embed this at a large scale across the organization. So, we've been talking, it seems like every day on the news about generative AI. And what you see is that among the largest companies, you still have at least half of them that are just starting to figure out what to do. What is more important is that this is actually extremely de-averaged across industries and across geographies. If you look at this, so this is a bit of a ranking, across sectors, across geos of average maturity. Of course, the average doesn't mean much. There is a lot of disparity within this, but still it gives a direction. You have at the top right, the most advanced, which is the telecom and media and tech sector in North America. The most mature, the one moving the fastest, no surprise here. In general, North America is faster adopting this technology than Asia, which is faster than Europe, which is what we could expect. But also, there is a very significant disparity in industry adoption of this technology, with telco and tech going the fastest, followed by insurance and financial services, especially in the US, and then you have a few of the laggards, especially consumer goods and pharma, surprisingly, or healthcare systems in general. So again, the technology is moving at light speed. Businesses are not moving as fast at all, with very significant disparity across industries, across sectors, and within a sector, across companies. Now, there is this idea that if you wait, actually, you're going to be able to catch up. The technology is moving fast. If I just use the latest version, I'm going to be all good. This is not what we're seeing. We are seeing the leaders widening the gap with the laggards. And this, let's say, was true pre-generative AI, and it continues to be true today. Leaders, and here we just compare the most advanced sectors versus the rest. But it's true also, company by company. The leaders are investing more. They are building more capabilities. They are generating more ROI from their investments. And so they are creating a virtuous circle of learning, investment, return, and therefore even further distancing the rest. There is a real first mover advantage with this technology. And so huge disparity of adoption across sectors, huge disparity of adoption across companies, and the leaders are widening the gap. The gap is not reducing. So that's a bit the state of GenAI today. Now, as companies move from discovery to value realization, everyone is asking the same questions. Okay, this is all good. I've started. I've understood. I've done some POCs. Now, where is the real value? How do I think about the cost, risk-benefit trade-offs? How do I prepare my organization to be able to scale this? How do I think about the technological impacts, the people impact, the risks? Everyone talks about the risks, data privacy and hallucinations and IP and the like. The problem with this is these questions are extremely generic, and their answer is actually very de-averaged, depending on what you're trying to achieve. There is one important, let's say, frame of reference that we use to help companies think about how do you create value with generative AI. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. Deploy, reshape, invent. So what does it mean? Essentially, it means that there are three ways in which you can create value with generative AI. Deploying it in everyday tasks. Think about, what you will have in your daily lives for workforce productivity. You will have generative AI in the tools that today help you with your emails, your calendar, your spreadsheets, your PowerPoint decks. Thank you for that. Summarizing meeting notes and all of this. And much more. And every big software vendor is embedding generative AI in its suite. So this will come to each and all of us. There is very broad productivity to be gained from it. It is not something that companies fully control because they're dependent on their vendor's roadmap. It's a table stake. Everyone will have to do it. But it is insufficient to drive value. Reshape is where you start seeing a lot more measurable impact. Reshape is about taking critical functions and really changing the way people work. It is not about deploying 200 use cases. It is about taking specific processes and jobs and thinking, okay, how do I change the way people work across their entire workflow with generative AI? That can be, again, design and engineering. It can be knowledge management, marketing, customer service, field forces, technology. I'll share a few examples later. But it is really a different mindset from the first bucket. It is really about transforming how you work. And then the last one, invent, is again of a completely different nature. In some industries, there is the opportunity to really drive new offerings, new business models with generative AI. Think about building, if you are in beauty or in fashion, a virtual assistant that can help your consumers with their daily choices of products, beauty routines, how do you dress, etc. Think if you're a B2B media company or information services company of building an insights platform for your customers that will leverage your data and turn it into actionable insights and build a new service out of it. Really top-line opportunities that leverage existing data sets. So a completely different type of play. And so when we think about where do you create value, and when we think about what are the challenges from a tech standpoint, a people standpoint, and a risk standpoint, we think very differently across these three value plays. It doesn't mean that they don't all bring value, but they bring value in very different ways. Let me just show you a few of these ways. Deploy. We are doing this on ourselves at BCG. We are deploying a wide variety of tools to help us do automated emails, to help us with improving the speed at which we build PowerPoint decks, to help with a wide variety of tasks, leveraging Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT Enterprise and the like, to help with knowledge management. On average, we have calculated that this helps us save 6.5 hours per week, about 18% of an average week of a consultant. So it's really meaningful impact, but it is diffuse productivity across the entire organization. We're not going to fire 18% of our consultants. We're probably not going to change our business model. What's probably going to happen, unfortunately for our clients, is that we send more emails and write more slides. But we have saved 6.5 hours per week for everyone. Reshape is quite different because here you're talking about direct bottom line impact. And for example, in customer service, we're working quite a bit in telco and in banking to really change how customer service agents are working from, transcripting automatically conversations into text, finding automatically the right answer to a customer request, summarizing the meeting so that you don't have to do it after the call. And all of this drives, I would say, at least 25% in reduction in call duration, which has two impacts. One is productivity and potential savings, but the other one is customer satisfaction, because if I'm able to answer a customer in 3 minutes instead of 5, I'm driving NPS, I'm driving customer satisfaction. The other big area is marketing. We know we are helping customers with reducing dramatically the cost per item, which again allows to produce more for less costs, and also to drive more engagement and quality. It's not just a cost play, it's also an effectiveness play. We are helping energy companies with augmenting their field technicians so that they spend less time to maintain equipment, for example. So we reduce the time of each intervention by about 30%. Again, something that can either be translated into bottom line savings or into, let's say, more effective network maintenance. Here, it's a much more focused, but much bigger impact, where I had 18% in the first column across the enterprise. I had 25, 30% or more in specific functions when I reshape processes. Invent, again, completely different. We're helping a B2B information service company to transform their service. Essentially, they sell data to their customers, financial data, into an insights platform where they no longer sell data. They sell ready-made insights and a conversational interface where you can interrogate the data and generate back insights and reports. Again, this is a revenue play, so quite different. The service is meant to generate at least 100 million in recurring revenue year one, and quite different in terms of value play from the other two. Companies don't have to choose between these three value plays, by the way. They have to be managed as a portfolio. The first one is a table stake. All companies will have to go through it, and they will have to go through it because it will be an expectations of their employees, and also because if they don't, they will fall behind in terms of overall productivity. The second one is where they get short-term value, money in the bank, and the third one is where they get long-term competitive advantage. So they have to tackle all three. But the way to tackle them is quite different, and when I talked about scaling challenges, value is different, as I explained, but also how you think about tech, people, risk, and operating model is quite different. When you're in deploy, the tech is going to be mostly off-the-shelf software. The people challenge is just, quote unquote, making sure that people are using it, so it's upskilling, it's training. The risks are technical. There are risks about data privacy, about IP, about confidentiality. And the operating model, it's mostly IT and HR that are going to be in charge. But when you're in Reshape, it's quite different. You're not going to just do off-the-shelf software. You are going to assemble a set of solutions behind a single co-pilot or assistant for each of the functions, the marketing assistant, the sales assistant, etc., that will assemble a variety of modules, something that you are probably going to build a bit custom. In terms of people, the big challenge is process redesign. You have to change how people work, and workforce planning. Because if we look at the numbers, about 50% of any company's total employee base is going to be impacted by this kind of plays, quantitatively and qualitatively, in the next 3 years. And so you have to anticipate the impact on your workforce. The risks are also of a different nature. It's operational risk. This is where you have to manage hallucination. This is where you want to make sure that you're not making the wrong decisions because you have improper data. And the operating model is function-led. So marketing has to transform itself, customer service has to transform itself, etc. And then when you're in Invent, again, very different, because in terms of tech, we're talking about bespoke systems that are going to be very heavy in engineering and leveraging first-party data. You're going to have massive challenges, by the way, in terms of cost, performance, stability trade-off. So it's really complex from a tech standpoint. From a people standpoint, it's mostly about having the right capabilities. Again, these are quite complex plays, and so you have to have top-notch engineers and designers. The risks are of a very different nature. They're usually client-facing risks, so think about ethical risk, responsible AI. How do you make sure that this is not spinning off nonsense, that you don't have people diverting the AI to things that you didn't want? And the operating model is quite different as well. It's an incubation innovation team running on the side and thinking in a disruptive manner. So when we think about value and when we think about how to scale, very important to have these three lenses in mind. Let me finish with just 2 quick slides. Okay, what did we learn from leaders? 3 things, and how do they drive superior value? Outcomes at scale, right brain, left brain, 10, 20, 70. Outcomes at scale. Leaders tend to focus on outcomes, not on technology, not on use cases. They take a few business outcomes they want to drive, and then generative AI and AI in general is at the service of that. They usually look for total enterprise 5 to 10% of EBIT impact. That means so we work with large companies, 20 billion company, we're talking about 1 billion in potential value. So it's quite significant. But they also invest significantly. The ratio of investment to impact is 1 to 3 on average, excluding severance. So we're talking about several hundred of million to get there. Right brain, left brain. This is extremely important. I have a lot of clients who think, okay, generative AI actually replaces everything that came before. That's not the case. Generative AI is the right side of your brain. It's the inductive brain, the one that makes assumptions, that is creative, that solves problems. But it's not the part that makes decisions. It is not the part that has any form of accuracy or precision metric. And so, just like you need 2 sides of your brain, you need generative AI and you need predictive AI, machine learning, and the like to generate value. And the third one is 10, 20, 70, and that's the most important one. 100% of the effort is going to be 10% on the algos, 20% on the tech and the data, 70% on people and processes. And companies tend to forget that. They spend a lot of time on the 10%. They deploy a lot of POCs, a lot of smart algorithms. They forget the 70%, and the entire thing breaks down. So it's better to do the 10, 20, 70 once than to do 10 times the 10. And so let me finish with one thing. What do I tell to clients and CEOs that say, okay, so what should I do tomorrow? Well, 4 things that you can get started with tomorrow in order to move along that ladder of, from, let's say, trying to figure out what to do to actually driving impact. First, focus. Pick a few battles. Don't go for 200 small use cases. Focus on a few transformative opportunities, and don't start from the tech. Start from the outcomes. The second one is accelerate learning in a coordinated way. This technology is evolving extremely fast, and as we said, the people who go the fastest in adopting it and learning from it will drive superior advantage. This requires a new muscle in organizations, a learning muscle, one where you test things, measure the impact, deploy, and then, improve continuously. It is not something simple for large organizations that tend to have a lot of fragmented efforts. Given this technology is evolving very fast and is also black box in a way, you have to tame it through experimentation and learning. And the best way to do this is in a coordinated fashion. You don't want to do 72 times the same mistake across the organization. You'd rather do it once, and then the 71 next times you do it right. And then you move on to the next mistake, and then you learn. The third one is anticipating people impact. I mean, this is extremely important. Of course, I come from Europe where labor laws are pretty strict, but it's, of course, true everywhere. This will have a very meaningful impact on the workforce of any company. It would not be, let's say, wise to let it happen without anticipation. So really anticipating what are the jobs that will be the most impacted, how do I manage that transition, how do I reskill and upskill part of my workforce is extremely important. And finally, and I think this is, of course, already the case for everyone in this room, but it's something I encourage you strongly to advise to senior management across your organizations. Be a practitioner yourself. This is not something that you can be good at if you don't use it on a daily basis. And I still have a lot of clients in the C-suite that, of course, they've read a lot, but they're not practitioners. And this is extraordinarily important. That's it for an accelerated view. Let's say 12 months of learning in 20 minutes. I think we still have maybe a few minutes for questions. I don't know if we have any. Or not. Go ahead. Sorry, I don't know. Oh, there is a mic.
I got a quick question.
This is not working.
I got a quick question of how do you drive user adoption? One thing we were super surprised by is like ChatGPT came out. We were like, you could all totally use this. And we thought everybody was just gonna like jump out of there, and then they didn't. So it's like, I don't know if it's an education thing or just any strategies to just get average employees, staff members on with it and using it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there are two things. And again, if I go back to my different type of plays, the most complex one is in the reshape, because you want people to work differently, not just use something, but to work differently. The only way to do it is to take people by the hand. I do not believe in training. I'm sorry, I mean, probably a lot of people do training here, but I mean, training through PowerPoints in a room for 2 hours is not going to move the needle on this. It is so disruptive to how we work on a daily basis that, you have to really do a hands-on, and this is why it's not possible to do this across 300 places in the organization. This is why I recommend to focus. You take a few places, and then you take people by the hand. I work a lot in marketing. If you want to drive change in marketing, you go together with a marketing team, and you are going to do the next 5 campaigns with them using this. And then, after the first one, they just look, okay, is this working? The second time, yeah, okay, they get into it. The third time, they are in the driver's seat, and then they gain confidence. But it takes a number of cycles of iteration, hands-on iteration in their daily life, in order for this to become part of the BAU, I would say. So that's at least the best way that I found. And by doing this, you achieve a few things. One is you change the way people work. The second is you adjust the technology to how they want to work, because technology drives processes and vice versa. And so, you have to adapt the technology to the target process that you want to have. And 3, you create trust, because by working with this on a daily basis, they start to understand how it works. They start to understand the limits. We didn't have enough time to talk about it, but of course, this is an extremely important part when using generative AI, because it can be very assertive, but as we know, you should not trust it blindly. And so there is a real learning muscle that you have to build, but it's not a quick thing. It's not, let's do a webinar and then suddenly all good, right? At least that's not how I see it.